I had first decided to start quitting video games, there were several obstacles I had to overcome in order to start beating that habit. So I had some fears, doubts, personal emotions that I felt were keeping me back from starting this journey towards freedom from gaming. So today I want to share with you these fears, doubts, emotional struggles that made gaming pretty much the hardest thing, or quitting gaming pretty much the hardest thing I've probably ever done in my life. And I'm going to walk you through these in today's video. So, the fears I had when I was trying to quit gaming, because everyone has fears, but mine when I was trying to quit gaming was that my life would be completely boring and totally without purpose when I quit gaming, because I relied on gaming as this source of purpose and meaning. You know, everyone is going to attach themselves to a certain I'd say source of purpose and meaning as they go through life, because that's how we're designed as humans. Is we're designed to attach ourselves to certain practices, certain goals, certain purposes that are going to give us a reason to be here, that are going to give us a reason to get up in the morning, no matter how degenerate or destructive to other people they are, right? Our internal minds as people are actually totally immoral, right? Like psychological studies have shown that inside your head there's basically like multiple people. There's not just like one mind that's always influencing your decisions. There's like multiple people, and it's like they're all sitting at a board meeting almost, and they all want to have a chance to speak, and at different times and in different circumstances they all get a chance to kind of influence your thinking, right? So that connects to the fears when trying to quit gaming, because that's how you find purpose in life, right? These different beings in your head, these different sides of your personality are constantly trying to take over or influence your decision making, and oftentimes that decision making may lead to you doing something that doesn't align with your inner sense of purpose or the standards that you hold for yourself. So that's why you often feel like quitting gaming, even though you've resolved before to never play video games again, to just stop gaming, right? And depending which state you're at, this takes a bit of humility to realize that you might not actually be at the stage of development where you can say, I'm just going to go cold turkey from gaming. Sometimes, or in most cases, you're just going to have to scale down the amount of time you spend gaming each day, or you're just going to have to get rid of all the influences that encourage you to game in your physical environment, right? There's certain steps that have to be taken, is what I'm trying to say. There's certain steps that have to be taken in order to quit gaming that don't directly have to do with you just saying, hey, I'm going to quit gaming today, right? And I'm going to do nothing about my routine or my mindset. I'm just going to say no to video games forever, right? Just having that desire isn't good enough, because your mind is going to default back to its original state, to its default state, right? And that's why you relapse. It's your mind kind of returning to these dips in willpower where you decide to go back to gaming, because you make these excuses for yourself. It's not a big deal. I can just not play any video games tomorrow. If I play some today, I just won't play anymore for the rest of the week. Excuses like that. So once I started quitting gaming, I had this fear that I would basically just be bored for the rest of my life. I would have no community, because I was pulling on basically the gaming community and the culture surrounding that for my sense of identity, basically. So I felt like I was losing my culture and my identity and my hobbies and even like my overarching purpose in life, because I thought that I was going to be playing video games for the rest of my life. I thought that this was like something I was going to be enjoying right up until I was like an old man, right? That was kind of the vision that I had for myself. So deciding to quit them because of these negative things that gaming was inducing into my life, like for example, very very negative social interactions, complete lack of a social connection besides with like my immediate family. I had no friends. I had basically no ability to have deep conversations with people or being able to show sympathy or empathy with people on like any level. Yeah, gaming basically turned me into, I guess the correct word in psychology would be a narcissistic psychopath, right? I was totally obsessed with myself. I only really thought about myself. I was only concerned about the next time I could play video games and get the next dopamine hit. Whenever I was doing anything else, whenever I was out in public, whenever I was just at school or fulfilling one of my other obligations, I would always be thinking about, when is my next hit going to come with gaming, right? Like, what am I going to do then? I was almost like planning out my next gaming session when I was just sitting there in the classroom or sitting there in the car or anything like that. So that was the level of depravity that I really got to in my gaming addiction. And yeah, just like having this identity crisis where I have to give all of that up, all of my purpose and my meaning in life, all these things that I've concerned myself with for the past 1-2 years of my life, where my gaming addiction was at its highest, leaving that all behind in favor of trying to improve myself, that was no easy task. So that's it for the fears and identity crisis that I had when trying to quit gaming, but there were lots of others. Like, for example, I had a lot of doubts. I didn't think I'd be able to quit because I'd never been addicted to anything before, and I never really had the willpower to say no to temptations like these, right? Like, I got hooked, you could say, onto gaming when I was probably 12, 13, and then my addiction probably lasted for like 1 to 2 years after that, up until I was about 15, and then I decided to break it. Now I'm 16, so I've been pretty much clean of video games for over a year and a half now. So the thing that I've grown to realize as time goes on is that addiction really, the thing that I've grown to realize is that addiction really just takes hold of you and doesn't let go as time goes on. And it's very hard to be self-conscious and aware of your current state when you're addicted to something, because you're only concerned about the relationship between you and that thing. You're not really concerned about how you appear in front of other people when you have this addiction. You're not really concerned about what other people may be thinking about that addiction. You're not really you're only worried about what's going on inside your head, what you want, and how that relates to this object or this thing or this practice that you're addicted to. So obviously, or as you can guess, up until I was 12 or 13 and got hooked on video games, I was never really addicted to anything in my life. So once I started playing video games and was exposed to all this like insane graphical stimulation, right? Like all this dopamine that comes as a result of playing these modern games that are designed by these companies to addict you, in case you didn't realize. When you start playing that as a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, you have no kind of like reference to put that up against. This is like the greatest thing you've ever experienced, right? And I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you probably started playing video games and got addicted to them at like an even younger age. Maybe your parents bought you your first console for Christmas and they just let you play whenever you wanted, or you just got onto this stuff at like an earlier age and it became your obsession from when you were super young, and you've basically let video games transform and basically define your identity for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And my heart goes out to you in that situation, because odds are there's never really been anyone in your immediate proximity who's reached out to you and said, hey, do you really think that these video games are good for you? And like, sure, maybe your parents say that you should only play like an hour a day, or like 2 hours, 3 hours per day, but it's never just 1 hour or just 2 hours or just 3 hours a day, right? You become so stimulated and just hooked on these games that if you limit yourself to just 1 hour, if you say, okay, I'm just going to play 1 hour video games when I get home from school today, it's never just 1 hour, right? It's more like an hour, and then you look at the clock and you're like, just 15 more minutes, and then after that 15 minutes are up, it's like, just like another 15, and then maybe another half an hour, and then 1 hour turns into 2 hours, which turns into like 2.5 hours, right? That's just the power that video games have over us as human beings. That's just how intentionally they've been designed to addict us, especially the more modern games, right? Just as a side note, it's actually quite a bit easier to quit video games if you're playing the older stuff, because it's less dopamine, it's less stimulating. If you're only playing like Nintendo 64 and you want to quit video games, it's going to be relatively easier than if you're playing whatever they play nowadays, Rocket League, Fortnite, all these different new 4K PC originals. That's going to make it quite a bit difficult, because there's just like a whole nother layer of stimulation and dopamine that's going to come from these more modern games, right? Because the technology's advanced, and companies have found more and more ways, more and more advanced technology to basically addict us, this new generation of young men and people in general who are interested in video games. So the fact that I never really had any role models around who could tell me why video games were bad for me, or why I should stop, or why they quit, or tell me anything like what I'm telling you in this video right now. The fact that I had no one like that around me is pretty much probably the top 1 or 2 reasons I never quit video games to begin with. That was the one limiting factor to my gaming experience, right? So yeah, gaming was the first addiction I'd ever encountered, and because I didn't know how to deal with addiction, I didn't know what addiction looked like, I didn't know how it sucked you in. This was all like my first time for experiencing an addiction like this. I didn't know how to say no. I never had the willpower to stand up against struggles like this, where you're in the classroom and you're thinking about gaming, but then another voice pops up in your head and says, no, I've been trying to quit, and I told myself yesterday after I played for 8 hours that I was going to quit today and that I would never play video games again. But then the other voice in your head says, hey, what if we just play today, and then we'll never ever play again for the rest of the week. And then the other voice in your head says, no, I'm going to stick to what I said, I'm going to stick to that commitment. It's basically just this ongoing battle in your head while you're sitting through class, you're super bored, and you're sitting on the bus and you're super bored, and there's basically just these two voices in your head no matter what you're doing, and they're just constantly arguing back and forth, and the one side that's against you is trying to bargain so that it can play video games again. Then the other voice in your head is trying to make you stronger and trying to say that no, we've already decided to quit, we're going to resist this. And then by the time you get home, you're basically just like completely mentally exhausted. You don't even feel like thinking anymore. You don't feel like doing your homework or doing any task that requires you to use your mind, because not only have you been in school all day, but you've also just been having this ongoing battle, this ongoing argument between these two forces in your head. And you come home to seeing your PlayStation or your Xbox with the controller beside of it plugged into your TV, and you just feel like relaxing for once in the day. So of course you go ahead and you play video games again. And that's kind of the purgatory, this knowing what you're supposed to do but not being able to carry it out, kind of place that I was stuck in for probably like half a year at least. So if I ever had a mentor to kind of take me outside of that situation and tell me what was happening and give me this inside view to how psychology when trying to quit addiction works, then I probably would have quit video games much faster than I originally had. So obviously dealing with addiction, especially as like an older kid, a younger teenager, is very, very scary, because you don't really know if you could reach out about it. You don't really know if you do have an addiction to begin with, because you've never had one before. You don't know how your parents would react if you ever told them that you do have an addiction, right? Because all this stuff is new to you, and it's very, very difficult to try to navigate those waters on your own. So there's definitely some value to having to reach out to your parents or to someone else who doesn't struggle with video games, to reaching out to one of those people for some kind of accountability. So there was another struggle that I had to overcome within my own head when I was quitting video games, and that was the mental, the internal game. So this was me basically struggling against the emotional values, the ego investment that I had in gaming. By the way, if you're still watching this and you're interested in getting some extra help in trying to quit video games, then I guarantee that purchasing and checking out my course, which is linked in the description, and checking it out and purchasing it just for the one-time cost listed there, it'll definitely help you quit video games for the rest of your life. I sunk hours into that. Weeks of my time and attention and effort went into basically putting the best quality content I could into that course, and I'm absolutely sure it'll help you quit video games for good. If it is something that you struggle with and you're in a similar situation like the one I was in, and you're just looking for some extra help to quit video games, it'll definitely help. So yeah, the emotional struggles that I was kind of betting myself against when I had to quit video games was, the video games were not only like where I got my culture and my sense of identity from, but it was also where I put my values in, right? I had my own certain opinions when it came to how I should play Super Smash Brothers, like who my main was, what moves I used with them, what style I used, right? All of these different quirks and traits I had ascribed to myself came as a result of how I played video games and how I did them, right? Whenever I was playing like a platforming game or a game where you had to like collect certain rewards, I would always 100% that game because I was such a perfectionist. I was such a completionist, and I pride myself in that, right? It was almost like a sense of ego that kept me playing video games, because it was a proof that I was competent. It was a proof that I could actually be good at something. It was a proof that I was valuable in some certain fundamental way. So that was a deep desire that video games fulfilled for me, was that I could do something bigger than myself. I could contribute to a cause that was bigger than myself. Was that I could master something, that I could complete something 100% just completely on my own. So that was kind of the hole in my soul that video games filled for me, that I couldn't really get from anywhere else, right? Because no one had ever told me before, and such a vibrant and understanding way as video games, that I was good in and of my own self, that I could get stuff done, that I could get really, really, really good at a certain skill, that I could master something. That was something only video games could really tell me, could really prove to me, right? So trying to quit video games, I had to let myself realize, was actually an exercise in proving to myself that I could really be good at something, was proving to myself that I could overcome something without the help of gaming and this screen that's basically just being my third parent and affirming all these different beliefs I had about myself that I never would have before thought to be true, because I had such low self-esteem. So I think I'll end that point on the note that quitting gaming was basically the biggest boost to my self-esteem ever, because it proved to me that I didn't need gaming to affirm my fundamental worth as a human being, right? There's other places you can get that. You can get that from just proving it to yourself in real world actions, like going to the gym and hitting a super hard workout. You never really know what that quite feels like until you've done it like hundreds of times, or at least like more than once, right? You gotta learn to love discipline and grinding on stuff and living in reality, no matter how cold or harsh or painful it gets, if you want to quit video games as a young man, because reality isn't pretty. and easy and restartable like it is with video games. So learning how to live in reality graciously and like a real human being should is what's naturally going to come as a result of you quitting video games. So yeah, that's what I think I've learned from my journey so far, or at least part of it, as it pertains to overcoming fears and doubts you have about yourself. So one actionable step that you might want to take on this is to write down just some limiting beliefs you may have about yourself, and then write down reasons why they aren't true. Write down certain circumstances where, for example, you've proved that you're not worthless, where you've proved that you're not stupid, where you've proved that you'll never be enough, where you've proved that that's not true, right? So yeah, I think I'll end on that note. Just write down certain events in your life that you've done that have proved that your limiting beliefs aren't true. And yeah, I hope this video helped. I hope that exercise helps. And yeah, like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. If you have any kind of feedback on how I produce my videos, I am just kind of a one-person team right now. But if you have any feedback on that, any realistic feedback, that would be appreciated. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.